Uh, Gavin, thanks for taking some time to talk to my current students and the internet. Pretty awesome set of consequences how we bumped into one another after some years ago that you graduated. We were both out in Illinois where we live, and we literally crossed paths on the Metrolink Trail.
Hmm.
I was out for a jog, I think you were too,
Yep.
and you pinged me on LinkedIn like an hour later, like, "Hey, was that you?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, small world."
And I had to make sure it was actually you, so I didn't go crazy and think I ran into someone else. But yeah, that is funny.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So small world, and thanks for So we kind of chit chat a little bit back and forth, and now you're doing this interview. So thanks for taking the time.
Yep.
So yeah, if you would start, maybe introduce yourself. Who are you?
So I'm Gavin Hemphill. I went to Ranken, graduated in 2016, and I was part of the Internet and Web-based development course there. Started in the generic, I think, development course, and then branched out into the web-based development course and towards the second year. And I'm currently working at Daugherty Business Solutions as a engineering consultant.
Nice. And so you graduated in 16. Was Doherty your first job?
No, I worked at a place called One Space beforehand. Was with them for a little over 3 years, and then I left to go to Doherty to kind of further my experience.
And did you get the job at One Space kind of right out of Rankin? Did it take a little bit of time? How'd that go?
It took a little bit of time to get a job outside of Rankin. I think I took a little bit of a break after college to kind of get some stuff situated, and I think my like the timing for the job search was just a little off compared to if I were to start a couple months later. So it was about I think it was maybe 9 months after I left Rankin that I landed a job, but it took me a while to start actively searching because I had a little bit of time in between graduation and job search.
Okay, so it did take a little bit of time, but it wasn't like a hardcore grind on the job hunt.
No, once I actually started applying, like um, like working hard to find a place to go. Once I was able to actually spend some time working to find a place, I was able to find one relatively quickly. The interview process took a little while in its own, so I'd say like general contact, it took me about maybe 6 months outside of college to get like an opportunity set for me, and that's including the time that I took off in between college and searching for a job.
Cool, cool. So now you're a Doherty. Where are you contracted at?
Nowhere as of right now. I actually ended my contract at Bayer Pharmaceuticals a while ago, and I'm kind of working on their local projects right now, setting up some stuff for Doherty.
Okay, cool, cool. So you graduated in 16. Here we are in 2023. Kind of what languages have you worked with in that time, or what would have been your dominant languages?
Yeah, so the main one that I worked with at sorry, name is blanking me. One Space was actually TypeScript. I did work originally with C Sharp whenever I first got hired on to them, and that's kind of what they hired me on for with C Sharp. But I kind of translated into using TypeScript shortly afterwards. Oh, I forgot to mention, I got hired onto One Space as sort of an internship, like an apprentice internship, and then got hired on full time. So in that apprentice internship, I did mostly C Sharp work, and then after it finished, I transitioned over to doing TypeScript work, which I didn't directly learn TypeScript over at Rankin, but I was able to pick it up because of the stuff that I learned at Rankin, specifically the knowledge that I had from C Sharp, which is one of the bigger things that I did learn in my time at Rankin. So I spent a lot of time working with TypeScript and C Sharp, and then a lot of AWS work as well, which was new to me. But that's kind of what I did over at OneSpace, a little bit of database work. And then after doing that for a while, I decided I wanted to move over to just something else. I just wanted to make sure I was, moving through my career. So I moved over to Doherty, and then I also kind of did a little bit of work with TypeScript on the first engagement that I had in Doherty. But I've been recently branching out into more front-end based development with Angular and React. and so on and so on. And as of recently, like the past 2, 3 weeks, I've been working with a lot of Angular and SCSS.
Nice, yeah, and our curriculum has come probably a long way since 16, and a lot of the things that you mentioned in there, you would actually, if you took a close look, you'd find in our curriculum things like AWS and React and the likes. So still doing C sharp as well. So that's cool,
Yep.
man. So constantly learning. It sounds like you're always learning new things, and in between engagements at Daugherty. And so, how does that work? And so, you were on a contract for Bayer, you said, and then that contract ends, and then what?
Yeah, so Doherty has a system where they can either place you, well, they usually do place you on an internal projects team, and they also give you the resources to learn something in your free time. So they kind of expect you to do a little bit of work on the internal projects team and then do a little bit of work teaching yourself something new. So currently I'm using Pluralsight to um, further my experience in React, which is the lesser known of my like front end frameworks. Learning React through Pluralsight, which is provided for Doherty, and then I'm also working on an internal projects team for them as well. And then I'll be doing that in between interviews and things for a new client. And once I move over to a new client, then I kind of just do everything for that client, and then the stuff for Doherty kind of takes a backseat until that client engagement ends.
Okay, nice, nice. And so, have you had a couple clients while working for Doherty? Was Bayer
No,
your
I was
only one? Or?
actually I was with Bayer for quite a long time, so I got hired on, and then shortly after I went over to Bayer, and then I've been off of Bayer for about I think maybe a couple months now.
Okay.
Currently looking for some other engagements, but it's been kind of on hold because there's been some work that's been done with Doherty. I think it's kind of placing some of the contract work on hold. So
Yeah.
for the meantime, I'm just working on the internal project team.
Cool. So, in your time in the industry, have there been any projects that you really enjoyed working on more than the other? Like any cool projects, or kind of what have you worked on?
Yeah, so one of the most notable things that I remember working on was whenever I first got hired on to OneSpace. So they were actually in the middle of developing a service for their website that allowed clients and users to upload and manipulate thumbnails and photos for different products that they had on their website. So I was working with the other interns and the other apprentice that was there with me, and a couple of the other team members that were actually with the company. And we developed from the ground up they called it a media service, but it allowed the users to upload photos and then using a specific string of characters when referencing the photos on the website, create live updates and changes to said photos for product thumbnails. So, for instance, one example they would use is being able to resize or crop it. So you kind of add the link that you wanted for the photo, and you could add a couple tags to the end of the photo to crop it on import rather than having to like store a bunch of different photos. Um, like client side, you could just have the references to said photos and have them updated live when they were pulled down, which was a really fun experience. And it was nice to be able to do something from the ground up, especially being fresh out of college, having that experience working on something brand new was definitely memorable. So
Yeah, that's cool. Really neat. Another neat project. Did you feel prepared for the task?
I think I did, yeah. I felt more prepared than I feel like some of the people did there. So I kind of felt everyone there was a little like inexperienced. You know, they are interns, they are internships. They were a little overwhelmed, but I did feel like, in the general sense of like everyone there, I felt pretty prepared given the scenario. So I was able to use what I had already to learn what I needed to learn and do what I needed to do.
That's good. That's good. So I see the background. I'm imagining you're working from home.
I am. I'm working from home. I've been working from home since, well, obviously COVID. I worked at one space in office until shortly, like before, well, shortly after the big COVID work from home situation. I was, funny enough, driving to my job about like 45 minutes a day, and then I moved over to, or I set up to move over to like 5 minutes within my job. And like a couple weeks before the move process, I got sent to work from home, and I have worked from home ever since. So I never did end up making that 5 minute commute to work. Instead, I've been working from home. Uh, and I was never invited back to the office. It was all remote work from there. And then I got hired at Daugherty, and then I've also been doing remote work here exclusively.
So different people like that more than others. Where do you fall? Do you like the remote work? Do you kind of wish you were in the office more, or somewhere in between?
I like the remote work. I like kind of a sort of a mix in between. I don't necessarily like to be in the office whenever I'm working, but I do like to do social events sort of in the office. So if there's like a get together, or like a monthly social event in the office, it's not too far away. I do like kind of meeting the people that I work with, or going out and meeting them at like restaurants and such, and things like that. But when it comes to work, I do prefer working from home. I've had a lot of time spent working on like the setup I have at my desk even before working from home. So I find it very easy to focus and very comfortable to work with like the monitors and the keyboard and
Yeah.
everything that I have set up here. It just makes it very easy to do that. And also, one thing that I didn't notice, or I didn't anticipate before switching jobs, is being able to work with the same setup between two jobs makes the transition between the two jobs a little bit smoother, because you may have like a different laptop or a different operating system you're working with, but the general setup that you're working with, the desk and your monitors and everything like that is the same. So it does feel very easy to transition in between two things, which
Makes sense.
has been evident and nice between two different jobs, and then also in between client engagements and swapping between the bench and the client. It makes it a little bit easier than having to like drive around, I'm assuming, and worry about some more extra details like that.
Yeah, yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, getting back to when you graduated, and there's a time you didn't look for a job, and then it was time to look for a job, and it still took a little bit of time. And so, what were the factors? What were the things that ultimately you think helped you lead towards success in finding that job and getting a good career?
I think definitely the biggest thing was networking. So it took me a while to get a substantial network on LinkedIn, which is what I'd spent the majority of my time searching for jobs on. It was kind of slow at first because I had to meet new people, talk to new recruiters, talk to new jobs and things like that. But I did notice that the second time I was looking for a new job, back when I was working at one space and I was looking to find somewhere else to work, it was significantly easier to find a job because I already had recruiters that I was talking to. I already had jobs that knew me. I already had people that I had talked to prior. Being able to reach out to those people and immediately have like some sort of opportunity laid out for me was a lot easier the second time than it was the first time. So I think if I had spent a little bit more time networking prior to graduation, I possibly would have made it a little bit easier for me. But I will say that the first time networking is probably, or getting all the network originally set up is a little bit harder. But once you do have that network of people you talk to, it's fairly convenient and makes job searching a little bit easier.
Yeah. Plus, I imagine the 3 years experience really,
Yeah.
really is the gold standard.
Yeah, experience is definitely something people are looking for, and I think that's kind of why it took me a little bit to find a job at first, both in the lack of experience, and also I felt like certain companies were only looking for fresh graduates at a certain time in their hiring process, like a certain time of the year, because I didn't really get a lot of opportunities around the time that I was searching originally. And then when it came closer to when I did get hired, I felt a lot more people were reaching out. So it kind of felt, maybe it was just by chance, but it did feel like it was a certain time of the year that people were looking for fresh graduate students, whether it was around the like graduation time where they expected students to be graduating, or if it was like around some sort of cycle that the business themselves had when it goes to the hiring process.
Yeah, makes sense. So, walk me through a typical day in working for Daugherty. You're working from home, so what time do you kind of clock in, and what do you spend your time doing?
So I typically start work at 9, so I usually get up at 8-ish, 8:30. I kind of get up, get ready, get some coffee, get myself prepared to get on, and then log on to my computer. As soon as I kind of turn my computer on and am answering messages and responding to emails and stuff, I feel that's my clock in time. I usually try to do it around 9, if not just a little bit earlier than that. Currently, right now, I'm on like in between opportunities, but it's still kind of similar to what it was when I was on an opportunity. I'll usually have a stand-up meeting in the morning where I talk to my team, other developers, Scrum Masters, things like that. Tell them what I've been doing, tell them what I will be doing, and listen to what other people have been doing, and then kind of have a little bit of a discussion of any problems or situations that I or someone else may have had in the morning or the day before, and kind of address those. And then depending on the day, we'll either have some sort of retro or planning meeting, where we will like kind of groom stories and get stories prepared to be worked on, so that we can pick them up in the next, um, I'd say sprint. I'm not sure if, I don't think the team that I'm actually on works in sprints. We're kind of just working in like an open-based development, but usually in teams that I've worked on prior and the prior engagement, we did have about 2 week sprints. So in that situation, we would have like a planning meeting once a week where we would do once or twice a week, I think. No, just once a week, where we would kind of groom stories and set them out to be prepared for the next sprint, and so that they could be pulled in whenever that sprint happens. And then every 2 weeks, we have a sort of retro where we kind of go over things that went well, things that went wrong, things that could have been done better last week. And then after that, we kind of set up the sprint for the next 2 weeks, pulling in all the stories that we need and the stories that we're going to work on. And when it comes to my day-to-day work, I usually have a couple meetings in the morning, check emails, respond to people, and then I kind of just get down to working on what I was working on at the time. I do that for however long I'm usually able to. Kind of take breaks in between because I do work from home, so I can kind of stand up and walk around and take breaks whenever I do need to. And then in the instance of being off engagement right now, I kind of spend about 60% of my time working on a story, and then 40% of my time learning new skills on the Pluralsight.
And so, just out of curiosity, if you had to break it down, you spend so much time in emails and meetings and in overhead, and then how much time do you write code? Is it 50-50? What's the breakdown there, roughly?
Looking at my week right now, I think maybe I'd say I spend maybe 50% of my time writing code, and then probably 30% of my time in meetings and 20% of my time learning. That's right now.
Yep.
And then if I'm in an engagement, it's usually closer to like 70% of my time writing code and 30% of my time in meetings. Obviously, 70% of the time writing code isn't I'm just typing the entire time. A lot of it is looking things up, figuring things out. I'd say like actually writing stuff, like typing is maybe about like 30% of my time.
Yeah.
30% of my time, and the other 20% of that 50% is like researching, looking up why this would work, debugging, things like that.
I love the transition, from student to employee. As a student, you pay an organization for an education.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether that's Ranken or whatever. And then, as an intern, you're paying with your time, but not with your money.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're an unpaid intern, right? So you're still paying with your time, but you're no longer paying with your money.
Mm-hmm.
And then as an employee, you're getting paid to learn. So it's like little steps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got to pay all this money to learn, and now I just got to pay with my time, and now I'm getting paid to learn. And certainly any organization worth their salt is going to pay their employees to learn because they need to stay up with the times. They need to, to do that. So I just love the transition. So, it's just when you're mentioning, hey, maybe X percent of my time is learning. Well, that's wise, of any organization to do that.
Yeah, they do definitely make sure that they not enforce, but very much encourage that you spend a lot of your time, even if you're off an engagement, learning something new, because they don't want their developers to grow stale in between engagements working on internal projects alone. So, which I think is a very good idea.
So it's an interesting economy right now. A lot that could be said about what's going on out there in the world. But developers in technology, it was a booming sector during COVID. We were needed more than ever, and I think a lot of companies overhired. And so I think they maybe adjusted a little bit, and we've actually seen some tech layoffs in big name companies. So what do you see out there as far as the industry? Is it a hot market? Is it cooling? What do you see?
I think maybe about 2 to 3 years ago, it was extremely hot. There was a lot of people being hired on, and that's kind of around the time that I was in between. Not in between. I think I was. It was about 2 years ago that I was looking for another job, and that's kind of how I was able to get onto Daugherty. But yeah, I think as of recently, I'm not entirely sure on the exact time frame, but I have noticed that the hiring process has slowed, and then also some companies I've heard of people getting laid off for what I can assume to be overhiring reasons, like how you mentioned before. They kind of hired too many people on, and then the kind of workload decided to kind of lessen out the time. But I think right now, it's kind of growing a little bit stale. I haven't heard of any newer people getting hired on. I don't have a lot of connections of people that are looking for jobs right now, so I wouldn't actually know, like if they were having difficulty being hired on. But I have heard of software development layoffs and engineering layoffs and things like that happening recently.
Yeah, and it's like some companies overcorrect the other way, kind of famously like Elon Musk, he like goes and hires, buys Twitter, and then he fires everyone and he goes, "Oh crap, I shouldn't have fired you, please come back." So even like
Yeah.
when developers are let go because of overhiring or whatever reason they're given, I don't think largely they're out of work. At least that's been my perception. But even if there are some layoffs, some cooling, if you will, would you agree it's still a hot market?
Yeah, I definitely say that if you were a software developer and you did get laid off, that it would be relatively, I wouldn't say easy, but it wouldn't be necessarily difficult for you to find a job, especially compared to pre-COVID. I feel like it's a little bit easier for developers to find jobs nowadays, regardless of kind of what's happening inside of current companies. It's just a very fast-growing field, and there's always new companies coming up, and there's always new reasons to hire people because of changing technology and so on and so on. So,
So now, as someone who's been in the industry for call it 7 years, right? You graduated in 16. So,
mhm.
what do you like about the industry, and what do you dislike about the industry?
So the funny enough, the thing that I like and dislike the most about the industry kind of happens to be the same thing.
Hmm.
It's the fact that it's always changing and evolving. In one hand, it's very exciting to be able to learn new stuff constantly every year. It's also a little stressful to have to stay on top of what is hot nowadays and what people want to develop. So a lot of times, at least in the field that I'm in, I don't necessarily have a choice of what I am working with, the languages I am working with. So if I get put at a company that wants to work with language X, I don't know language X, I do have to learn language X,
Yeah.
which I do like, and that is kind of one of the main features that I enjoy about the job is I like to learn new things, and I like to be able to feel like I'm on top of like the change, but it can be stressful at times because it can put a little bit of pressure on you to learn something that you prior to that have not even looked into. So there are things you can do to make that a little bit easier. It's, spend some of your free time researching and seeing what's popular, looking into like what could possibly change in the future. And then I'm assuming, like I said, like you said, I've only been in for 7 years, but I'm assuming the farther along I get in my career, the easier it will be to pick up these new technologies because
Yeah.
so many of them are similar, and I can only um, be caught off guard so many times, I'm assuming. Um, but yeah, I do enjoy it, but like I said, it can be a little stressful, especially like when you're relatively new in the field.
Yeah, in my mind, it's very much like actually learning another spoken language of like, hey, my second language after English is probably going to be pretty hard, especially as an adult learner. But then you get another language after that, and you're like, oh, there's some similarities here between my second and my third language. And then you get a fourth language. Oh, there's a lot of similarities between my first and my third language and the fourth one. And so I think you're right there. That plus also not only the similarities between the tools, but also the training of the brain. Like, once your brain gets in the mode of, okay, this is what it is. This is what works. This is how I'm going to learn. This is how, this process worked for me to learn. And whereas, trying these other things, anyways, I think I agree with you there. Yeah. Well, this is a great interview. I appreciate, all your answers. I think you answered them really well. I hope it provides some insight to current and or potential students. I guess my last question for you, here you are, you're 7 years in. Do you think you'll be doing this in another 20 to 30 years, or is a career change a possibility?
Yeah, I think so. The field that I'm in has a lot of possibilities of change, so I could stay a back-end developer primarily with a little bit of front-end experience. I could do front-end work mostly. I could do full stack work. I could do Scrum Master work. I can kind of branch out to whatever I would want to branch out to in the future. I can't see myself leaving this field in its whole, but I could maybe see myself changing what I do in the field every once in a while. Maybe working on new projects, working with languages that I prefer rather than languages that I don't know, but I don't necessarily see a reason for me to leave the field anytime soon. I feel like the longer that I am in it, the better I am at it, and the easier it is to get better at it, like kind of how I said before. The more time you spend, the easier it is to pick up new things.
Great answer. Well, hey man, I just want to say again, congratulations on your, career, on your success.
Thank you.
I work with students every day who aspire to be where you're sitting, right?
Well, I once aspired to be where I was sitting too, so.
So you can relate.
Yeah.
So you can relate. So it's just great to see, someone successful out of Ranken, great career, good company, certainly life is a lot more than just work. But, it seems from my chair that you've kind of got that sector checked. You got that work sector checked off, and you can worry about the rest of life and all of its chaos and drama.
Yeah.
So, congratulations, man.
Thank you. And thanks for this interview. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to stop it, but stay on the line.
Okay.
All right, thanks.